Hello, welcome back. So today is going to be comfort painting. I have had a devil of a time with the cameras today, but I think, fingers crossed, they're working. So it's going to be comfort painting and it's a studio rough cut, so it's just me painting. I don't know if it's going to turn out well. I'm just aiming to do something, enjoy getting the brushes wet and hopefully learn something along the way. So I like painting cardinals, but I don't think I've ever painted a lady cardinal. So we're going to do a lady cardinal today. And this is a photo from Margaret Comic from the Facebook group Free Preference Photos for Artists. It's something like that. And so it's copyright free and we can paint it. Okay, so let's get going. Let's do a quick drawing. And I'm going to do this, I'm going to aim to do this quite loosely again. So we're going to be painting through the edges. Lots of water, lots of sploshiness. I'm using a small piece, I think this is Fabriano Artistico, although yes it is Fabriano Artistico, 140-pound cold press. I'm using a mechanical pencil and I think this is about a 0.5, although the numbers have rubbed off. Okay, should I put this on zoom for the drawing? Yeah, let's put it on zoom for the drawing. I can't fit the photo in, that's the only thing. Right, okay, let's just do a quick sketch of this. Let's put this front piece of the head in. And a bit of beak. Beaks are quite chunky, which is nice. I do like a chunky beak. That comes down. Yes, that piece is kind of slightly angled as it comes out to the tip of the beak. Then we'll go out to the eye. Just lightly put in the eye. We'll put in the detail later. But I will mark in, I think, just a little piece where that highlight is. That will just remind me not to paint in there. That come down. And this comes out here. And I'm not going to draw the front belly. Comes round and down to here. And the tail. Then its wing comes out here. Quite near the front of the belly of the bird. So it's not going to be tightly rendered, any of this. It's going to be very loose around the body, some detail in the head, but also quite a lot of sploshiness too. And then the tail comes down. Just looking at this shape around here. And it's kind of quite squared off, this tail. Let's put in some feet. Now the wood comes here. It's one leg that comes out. Just looking at the angles, they kind of taper a little bit towards, I suppose that's called an ankle. Do birds have ankles? And just a little bit here. And again, my reference is quite far away from me, so I can't see very much detail. This angles out a bit. I'm quite conscious of these negative shapes in here and making them not too regular. And interesting variation in there. That foot just pokes out a little bit there. Okay, well there we are, that's it. That's the drawing done. I'll just pop him onto overhead zoom, which I should have a hotkey for, but apparently is not working. And this isn't working now. There he is. Yes, okay, so obviously my cameras aren't working absolutely perfectly, but at least there's something going on in there. Okay, right, so that's the drawing done. I'll just show you my palette, and as I show you my palette, let's have a think about the colours. So the body is kind of this sort of beige ochre colour, but it's quite low chroma, it's quite greyed out. So our colours we've got Hansa yellow light. We might use a little bit of this. Cadmium orange might do. But yellow ochre I'm thinking will come into play here. But this is going to be too bright. We're going to grey that down. Then we have vermilion. I think vermilion will definitely be used, along with a little bit of the permanent rose. Because I think the red of the beak is kind of just in between these two, closer to this one than that one. Burnt sienna, we'll definitely use some burnt sienna. Cobalt turquoise, probably not, unless we want maybe a complement in there. We'll see. Let's see how crazy we get. Cobalt, ultramarine, definitely we'll be using ultramarine, probably in combination with burnt sienna. This is cerulean. This granulates really nicely, so we might throw some of that in somewhere. And black. Okay, I'm not going to put in the background. I'm just doing the bird. Right, so let's get going. Now remember this time to switch it back to canvas. Okay, so I have my paint. Just another quick spritz. It's very, very warm today, so everything dries out crazy fast. And my brushes, I've got a Skoda Reserva size 6, just for the detail bits, which is a Klinsky Sable. And then I've got a number 12 Silver Black Velvet, which I used to think was completely synthetic, but someone very kindly told me on the last video that it's actually a mixture of synthetic and squirrel, which kind of accounts for, yes, it's got the bristles have quite a nice floppiness to them, and they do take up quite a lot of water. And this is a Da Vinci Casaneo size 2. This one's a size 12. I think this one, it definitely is a pure synthetic. It's not lasting particularly well, but the point is going on it, but I do quite like these. Okay, right, let's go. A little bit of scrap. Let's put on, I'm going to put on some colour for the body, which is this ochre colour, and there's some reds in here, and we're not going to start painting in. We're going to put some colour down and then sploosh it all around with water. This is the fun bit, and the only thing that we have to be careful of, let me put him back onto zoom, is keeping away from the face, because we want some contrast in there. Okay, let me actually put him on overhead so you can see the palette. There we go. Right, now this ochre colour, I'm just going to get some yellow ochre. I'm just going to put a little bit down just to show you what it's like. Right, it's that colour. Now if I'm looking at the reference, we're in the right ballpark, but it's a lot greyer than that. So let's grey this down, and I could grey it down with a complement, but that was going to shift the colour, and I think the root colour of this is pretty good. I'm just going to put a little tickle of black in there, which will grey it down. It will also make it darker. So I'm just going to add a little bit of water back in there. Let's just try this. Maybe too much. This is going to dry light anyway, so yeah, and I think that is closer to what I'm seeing. There's a bit of variation in there. Okay, so that's going to be that ochre colour. So let's put some of that on. So I'm going to get some paint down. All right, now I know this is red in here. This is very grey up there. I'm just going to go straight through, pretty much. It's a little bit in there. Right, just straight through the lines. Let me put him back on zoom. There we go. And then I'm going to go in with some water quite fast, very fast, because it's very warm in here, and just put some water around all those edges so I have no hard edges in there. Right, be careful around the eye. Yeah, you see it's dried already. It'll give us a slight splotchiness, but I think that'll be okay. I'm just looking at him, maybe a little bit more chroma up here. It's just this little bit in there. All right, and then clean brush. Any hard edges that I can see, especially around these edges, they look pale, but if I don't smooth them out, they will catch the eye later, and I think it ruins the effect. And now my paper is fairly wet, which is good, so any extra paint we put down. I'm actually going to put a bit of tape at the bottom because this paper is buckling slightly. Oh, after all the shenanigans this morning, it's been good to actually put some paint on paper. Right, sorry about that lag. That's another thing I need to fix. Actually, let me fix this right now. Apologies, this will take 2 seconds. All right, let's take that off. Okay, now the red, I said we're going to use some vermilion. Let's put him in here. A little bit of permanent rose. That vermilion I think is just slightly too orange. I'm not going to grey it down at all, I don't think. Let's leave it as is. A little bit through the beak. I just put it straight through. Just dot it around where we see it. Now I'm gonna maybe go back in and dab that line of the wing. I think that where it crosses the body might need to be quite crisp. Let me just soften these, and this is just water that's going on here. Right, maybe a little bit. What colour are those legs, those feet? Slightly, maybe a little bit of splatter. I just about kept away from the eye. Just about 2 millimeters to spare. Right, again, we're going around these far edges so I don't leave any. All right, and then while it's still wet, a little bit of spritz. And let me just pop them back again. I will get this right eventually, you know. There we go. I tried to keep the camera set up so simple. Yes. it still goes wrong. We were just talking the other night, James and I, oh yeah, it's been really good recently, and it obviously heard us and decided to completely destroy itself. Okay. Now this looks like a bit of dog's breakfast at the moment, doesn't it? But I think I'm just going to lift just here, just with a bit of paper towel. See how that goes. Right. And now I am going to leave that to dry, so I'm going to pop this on pause, and then it will dry, and then we'll come back in and start putting in some edges just where I think it needs them. And I don't think we'll need that many to bring this out. I always find it surprising. Okay, so I'm going to let him dry. I'm going to put it on pause, and then I'll be back in a couple of minutes. Okay, so we're back, and I've taken some time just to tape him up completely. I thought he's still a bit buckled, but he'll be fine. Okay, so back of the hand. Yeah, almost dry. Right, now let's go in and put some edges in. I'm going to go to, I was using a 12, wasn't I? That's going to be just a bit too big. I'm tempted to go to my smallest. Let's go to my smallest, but I'm going to keep my 12 handy because I'm going to do a lot of smoothing. So let's start with the head. Now let's get our little bit of yellow ochre. Just zoom out so you can just see what's going on a bit better. Maybe that's a bit too small. Let's see. Let's give it a go. That's quite grey in there. I'm tempted to let's use a little bit of black Right, let's see what this looks like. That might be too grey. No, let's try it. I mean, what's the worst that can happen? Okay, I'm just going to put this front of the head in with one stroke. I'm going to bring the brush away. All right. All right, and then I'm going to come in with my size 12. Just smooth out most of these edges. Now don't worry, that I know it's dark around the eye, but we can always go back in. It's maybe a little too much. Bit of finger action. Okay. And a little bit more grey around here. I'm just kind of outlining the beak and just the front of the chest. Again, go back in with, I'm washing this brush, making sure it's clean every time. And what I'm doing, I'm trying not to go in too much to the paint, but the brush goes down, the bristles go flat, and I'm basically wetting the paper around it. And the paint flows into it, and then you don't get that overworked look. Just going to put a little bit of colour around this eye. Looking back at the reference, a little bit of grey back here. Again, once a bit of colour goes down, I want it to spread out. Okay, let's do this beak. Now it's kind of a slightly lighter, slightly lower chroma red on top. It's not the lightest of light. Again, it's our vermilion and our permanent rose. I'm actually going to wet this beak just at the top. This paint may bleed a little bit, but bleeding is okay. And this will have to be beefed up a little bit. And if it bleeds down here, I'm okay with that. Okay, how's that looking? It's looking terrible, isn't it? It will look terrible for quite a while. Right, now there's a little bit of red at the top. I'm hoping this paper's still a bit wet. Yeah, just dotting a bit of colour in there. Maybe a little splatter. No, it's not enough water on that to splatter. Just a little bit actually, but probably don't want too much. There we go. Right. Maybe I'm going to lose a bit of this edge under here. This might be a mistake. Yeah, it's looking a bit like a chicken though, isn't it? But never mind. Never mind. So what else? Let's go back to our greyish colour. Looking at this tail, this underbelly over here. I'll make this fairly crisp down here. Just a tiny bit of lighter feathers in there. I think this is, on the reference, this is actually greyer there than I'm painting it, but okay. And let's soften the edge. Join those two bits together. I'm just keeping basically this hard edge and everything else. And this hard edge at the top, everything else is soft. Right, now I'm just looking at this. A bit more colour. Just want to define a bit more around here, I think. I just want to suggest that the belly's there. Okay, that's got too wet. That's fine. Okay. And maybe a little more colour just dotted here and there. Now this is kind of a bit more ochre, slightly orange, slightly more yellow in there. Okay. Well, I'm not particularly confident at this point, but then I never am at this point. You just have to soldier on and trust. Let's put some tail colour in. All right, a little bit about vermilion again, a little bit about it's just grayer down there, but I think I'm going to lay it over that. And it's dark. And this tail goes right up here, doesn't it? Oh, I drew that wrong. Bad, Michelle. Right. Just using the belly of the brush. The belly of the brush is going right down on the paper. So you don't have to do that many strokes to get the colour down. It's just kind of placing bits of colour, then this softening brush comes in and then wets the paper. Yeah, and I kind of destroyed these edges. This will read like a tail when we're finished, definitely. But we don't, if we draw it in perfectly carefully, it will actually look less convincing than if we leave lots to the imagination. Okay, so there's this little bit of red on here, then it greys out a lot. Again, I think I'm just squinting at this, it's actually lighter up there. There's a little bit here and there, just dotting colour in. Oh, hang on, I've ended up swapping my brushes around. Clean brush, soften the edges. Alright, and it's still going to look fairly flat at this point. We haven't gone very dark yet. Okay, right. Now, I'm just going to put a little colour on that back leg, the one that's in shadow, and I'm going to go down to some burnt sienna for that. Maybe a little ultramarine just to grey it down a little bit of vermilion just to swing it slightly. Now this paper might be wet. Yes, it is. And careful, careful. Again, my softening brush is coming in. Just putting some water down there so it... How's that looking? That's not so bad, not so bad. And this other one, a bit more blue, I think it's a little grayer. And there's some peach colour, it's just kind of dark at the bottom. Let's pull that up a bit of red. Don't know about the branch, don't know. I mean, it's a sketch. I mean, this is just having fun, this bit. Now, what should we do now? I think a little bit, I'm going to try and get some greyness into the back feathers. Actually, no, I'm going to do the eye. I think I'm going to finish the face because that will give us... When this bit is finished, we may not have to do very much else on the rest of it. Just notice some hard edges creeping in there. Okay, right. Now, quite a stiff mix of burnt sienna and ultramarine for this. I'm going to zoom in because it's going to be quite detailed. All right, now I'm going to paint the pupil. Is it the pupil, the iris? The darkest bit. Trying not to get, I'm going to have my arm up to some kind of rest. And I want to leave the highlight. Now this is intricate stuff, so I'm using just the tippy point of the brush. Okay, it's going to look a little dark. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. apologies for that. Everything's going wrong today. And yeah, that's okay. And then just a little bit more water, just to make it slightly lighter. And then it's dark around the outside here, but there's a slight halo, lighter halo. This I find is quite important to put in. And come here again, and we're going over the bits we did before, but that's fine. And I'm leaving little gaps here and there, which will get filled in by the softening brush, which is coming into action right now. A little space there, it just gives the paint surface just a little bit more interest. You don't want to spell everything out. And okay, that's looking kind of chirpy. Quite a chirpy little cardinal this, and there's a little bit of colour around the top. Just a little bit there. I'm just placing small pieces of paint, and then the softening brush comes in, wets the paper, and just lets the paint flow. And if there's not quite enough, I don't think there's quite enough there. Drop a bit more in. Just squinting at it. And just maybe a little bit there. How's this looking? I can't really tell. I don't think there's something. There's something coming. Something coming. Right, now let's do a bit of intensity of red on this beak. Okay, so it's slightly darker at the bottom. Again, softening brush because it curves round into the light, so it's slightly lighter. Is that working? I don't know, maybe. And then there's a slightly darker bit here. A little bit there. Again, the softening brush comes in just to make that look kind of curved. It's not quite working, is it? I think this needs to come up a bit further. There we go. That's a bit better. I'm just going to put a little bit more intensity up here. Just a little bit. I'm just placing paint where I want my sharpest edge to be. Just softening out the rest of it. It does look like it's got a boom, which I don't want. I think there's too much colour coming up over here. Alright, and maybe just some little flickiness. That's a bit better. Of course, nobody will have the photo next to them when they see this, so as long as you get the rough shape right, you're good. Okay, right, now when this eye is dried, I'm just going to put a very light wash over this highlight because it's not quite as bright as that in real life. Okay, let's have a little go at these wings. Oh, I'm kind of dreading this bit actually. Now, first of all, I think I'm going to put in this dark that's underneath this tail. So again, my mixture of ultramarine and burnt sienna. And it's this piece just here, this line at the top. That's the thing we want to be crisp. But the rest of it, in fact, that fades out quite quickly, doesn't it? Maybe a little too blue. It's going to lose a little bit of that edge. All right, let's have a bit of red down here. Ooh, that's not red. And the paper's wet, so I can. That was pure vermilion, slightly too orange. And that's slightly grayer over this side. How's that looking? Don't know. Not sure about that. Oh, not sure about that. Right, so let's put some grey up on this wing. Now this needs to be a lot more intense, doesn't it? This comes grey over here. A little bit more red coming down. And again, softening the edges. Some of them need to be softened just a little bit. Some of them they can just bleed out wherever they go. A little bit of choppiness there. And this one is just slightly too harsh. Oh, I think he's rather. Oh, it's not a he, it's a she. It's a she. Thing is with birds, the colourful ones are usually male. Right. Just going to intensify this bit of wing here. But that fades out fairly quickly. I'm not going to put any of those lines in, I don't think. Yeah, I think I'm kind of liking it. There's something happening, isn't there? There's something happening. Just put it on overhead and zoom in so you can see it straight on. Oh, that's not too bad, is it? That's not too bad. Again, I always draw my birds chubbier than they actually are. I think I get very excited with all the edge softening. Just going to soften that a little bit. I think that's just a little bit too harsh. It's going to bleed out. There's a grey piece here. That wasn't very grey, was it? And again, I put a finger just to encourage it a little bit. Yeah, I think this bled out too much down there. So it's still right. I'm going to restate the bottom, I think, but is this tail too much? I'm just going to define just the end of it. What happens in here I don't think is too consequential, but I'm just going to define the end of it slightly better. I don't think it'll take much. There we are. Okay. Right, let's just define this. Actually, I can't do that yet. It's not quite dry. Okay, let's have another go at this back wing. It's looking a little flat. I do like the way that the edges are blending together though. I do like that. Right, so let's have a look. I think it's a little bit of shadow underneath there, but I think this piece needs to be strengthened up value-wise. It's tricky to see because the background in the reference is so dark and we have a light background. Just little pieces. Just going to leave a little bit there. Some bit of red creeping in. A bit more maybe. Slightly darker there. I'm basically picking and choosing the bits I want to paint. I think I'm actually fairly close. I don't think I want to do too much more on this. It's not a triumph, I don't think. It's not too bad. Let's just redefine the front. So the yellow ochre, just a little bit of black. I'm going to need more than that. Now this is actually going away from the reference because this is quite light there. And down here. I think that's dried. Yeah, not too bad. Do have to have some hard edges, otherwise it won't read well. And I'm gonna splatter a little bit of yellow ochre in there. Just to give it a little bit of maybe just this front leg seems to have got a little lost. Don't want to put too much emphasis on the feet. And if you do that, all you can see is a bird with a very heavily defined feet. A little bit more darkness in there. Okay, I'm just gonna wash over that highlight, very light wash, just a little greyness. Just take the oomph of the paper away, and I think it makes it more convincing. But the top of this beak, I think it just needs something, just a little line, just to define the top. Then I'm going to come back in with some clean brush, just so it's slightly darker at the top. Oh yes, that was a good idea, Michelle. That was a good idea. Right, I think I'm close. Yeah, I think I'm close. Oh, I said I was going to put some shadows in there. Let's see. Yeah, I think it probably does need something. Just where those wings overlap. Right, bit of ultramarine, bit of sienna. I'm wondering, but a bit of just a few pieces, and here I mean, this is all trial and error. How does that look? That looks pretty terrible, actually, doesn't it? Or maybe we won't be doing that. Yeah. Just a bit of red into that. I've got some huge blossoms. Should have let that dry, but I'm impatient and I didn't. Just a little bit more. I think I could have spent a bit more time analysing. It's not going to work. Analysing the colours before I started in on this, but that's a lesson learned for next time, I think. I don't mind a little bit of bleeding, but not too much. Right, a bit more oomph over here. Bit of oomph under here. My dark, I've gone slightly purple. Now this tail is annoying me. I think he bled a bit too much. Let's put a little bit of this vermilion permanent rose mixture, which isn't quite what's there. Just restating the edge of that tail. I don't mind the bleeding, but all the form seems to have disappeared there. And now I'm leaning back and just looking for bits that aren't, that are kind of jumping out at me that shouldn't be. Well, okay, I think I might be pretty much done with this. It was only ever meant to be a quick sketch just to keep my hand in. I think I'm good. I'm just wondering about a little bit more colour around that eye. Just to crisp it up, and it's looking a little bit in here, I think. Kind of, but then it gets a little bit more here. And here, and actually underneath the beak is a bit. All right, now again, plain brush coming in. I'm wetting the paper next to the bits of paint I put down, and more strength in there. Just one final thing. I think this will be the final thing. The line of the beak, slight dark line where the two pieces meet. I'm not going to make it continuous. I'm squinting all the time just to see how it looks. Right, okay. I'm wondering about the top of that head. Oh, it's always one more thing, isn't it? It's always one more thing. Right, I'm going to dab this on a paper towel. I want some dry brush. I'm going to dry brush the top of this head. And soften that. I want it crisp at the top. And I've lost all my darks now. Yeah, I think that's probably enough, isn't it? Take a bit of that off. Okay. There we go. I'm actually, yeah, it's not too bad. There's all sorts of nastiness happening back there, but I think that's not bad for a first try. Okay. The final one last thing. I am going to put a small line on these wing feathers. Too wet. Should have done that. Okay. Okay, leave it. Right, now one more thing. Oh, this is someone needs to rush in and take the brushes off me at this point. Something that back piece. Okay. Right, so there we are. I think it's done. Yeah, there's something I kind of like that. I mean, it's a first go. And I can't paint anymore because it's so hot in here. Right, that's it. Oh yeah, that was fun. I enjoyed that. Very much. You put it back on overhead. Yeah. And I think the colours are kind of interesting. They're not completely accurate to what's there, but I think I like this greyed out ochre a lot. Okay, I'm going to put the cameras back on me because I think I'm probably very hot and red-faced. But I hope you enjoyed that. Nice to see you back if you're a regular. And as I said at the beginning, this is a studio rough cut, so just what happens. No plan, just whatever I fancy doing. So thank you for watching. I hope to see you again. Bye-bye.